and welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. The adventure of our lifetime is a fun thing to have, and it's a fun thing to do. And the young lady that we have with us today is living that and is that. She is a visionary for world leadership. She's worked with companies. She works with people. She works to help everyone understand that there's a deeper meaning to all of this. And if we take it as it's intended and we listen, we can learn everything that is intended for us to be aware of and to learn from, and therefore be able to help people around the world to live their best lives. Tiffany May Van Chan is with us. Am I close to that, my dear?
Tiffany May Yan Chan, and that's great.
Yeah, Yan Chan, that's right. It's not a V, it's a Y. It's May Yan Chan.
Yes, that's wonderful. It's great to be here with you, Kevin.
Am I close in that description?
You know, I'm humbled by it. I appreciate it. And I want to emphasize that I'm human. Everything that I am able to do may sound extraordinary. And I'm a channel for divine love. So if it's possible for me, it's possible for you, and it's possible for anyone that's listening to the show.
Haven't you found that it's true that if you keep your heart open and be quiet and allow for the universe to talk to you, that it will?
Absolutely. And I believe that the universe is in constant conversation with us. It's just our ability and our willingness to be open and receptive to the messages that are coming through. And I do believe that we're natural, walking, talking, living, breathing antennas, naturally hardwired to connect to divine. It's just our natural state of being. And we just need to be able to build a language, build a relationship with spirit so that we can be able to decipher and understand these messages more.
I firmly believe that we spend our entire lives. First of all, this is a very dense place to be. I'm told by all kinds of spiritual masters, people like Gary Zukav and Neil Donald Walsh and many others, that this is very dense. It's very difficult. We come here from a place of perfect love, and then we come, and then we come here.
Like, hold on.
and the reason that I'm also told that in order to come here, you have to be a warrior of some kind, because it is very difficult and you get obstacles in your way all the time, and other people telling you things and circumstances in life. And you had one that we'll talk about here in a minute, but circumstances and experiences and negative things that happen to you. And yet we have to work through them all to achieve the mission that we came here to do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Choosing to come to Earth is, we're taking the fast route of evolution. Let me put it that way. It's not the easiest place. It's there, and we've chosen a very interesting time, right? Because there's a lot going on in the world where things are quickening, where there's a lot of conflict. And what I like to tell people is that, you know, pain is an invitation for transformation. And so when we encounter those forging moments, and we're having a lot of that in the collective consciousness right now, like forging us through fire, this is really an opportunity to be able to evolve at a really fast rate. And, you know, it can be a little scary because there's a lot of stuff going on, but we've chosen a very interesting time to both grow and evolve and express ourselves so that we can become the highest expression of our consciousness.
Isn't it interesting that we've chosen a time of deep division, at least in this country.
Mm,
I'm not sure how it is worldwide. I haven't been around the world, but in this country, it is deep division of a lot of hate, a lot of division, a lot of fear, and some people are living in that. And I believe that we came here to be a beacon of hope for the other side, for us to become more than, and to help people recognize that we are all one, we all can work together for the betterment of everyone, and that we really would be better served by eliminating hate, division, and fear.
yeah. There's a lot of polarization that's not only happening in this country, all around the world. And my sense of it is that it's actually going to increase. I don't say that to incite any sense of fear, but almost like a sense of sometimes the pendulum needs to swing a particular way for us to actually realize that we need to come around to the other side, that we're actually united as one. And what I like to share with people is that we've all experienced that oneness consciousness before, right? Like when a baby wraps their hand around your finger, or when you're standing in front of a sunset and your sense of like your body and your sense of like self sort of like just melts into the abyss. We all know what it's like to be able to be in that state of oneness. We just forget, right? And so when we do have these encounters where we do have separation from other, or when we tend to believe that others people are not ourselves, that's when we're experiencing these flare-ups. But as time goes on, as the divisions get wider and wider, I do believe sincerely that it's actually those extremes that will bring us through the other side so that we can realize that we are united through a shared consciousness of love. And it's actually through that we're actually going to melt into one another and be able to experience each other in such a profound way that it's almost like a recognition of what we inherently know.
If we spent more time trying to understand each other, where we're coming from,
Hmm.
and to feel love for one another, we wouldn't have time for as much hate, division, and fear as we have now. Don't
Sure.
you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And, Kevin, I work with people who are, um, like leaders of the world, come from a particular pedigree, have a very high intent to be of service of the world. And I do notice, because I've recognized it within myself, that there's a tendency to think that we're better than other people, because I've received a certain education, or I've traveled around the world, or because I've done certain things and accomplished certain things. Therefore, I'm better than other people. And there's that separation that we think that, particularly, I'm calling forth leaders to recognize that those particular credentials are actually a sense of like separateness, right? And so when I work with people, particularly conscious leaders, it's really to set aside our egos, is to set aside any sense that we may be better than anyone else, and to be able to recognize what's shared here, because the only way out is through, and it's actually by recognizing ourselves and other people that we're actually going to be able to find a way through our situation that we're currently in.
I've said this before. I said it in the last show that we did,
Mm,
and I just really love the concept of working with visionary leaders around the world, because they, just by the nature of their position,
sure.
can have a much bigger impact, because they can impact their entire company, the entire culture, and can really help people who might otherwise feel less than, not able to realize that they can. And that's actually good for the company, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you, as a leader, become more, enter into a state of expansive consciousness, you can't help but bring other people along, right? There's such a joy and an effervescent love that you can't help but share that with others. And so, I work with leaders particularly because that's how the light gets shared. As they begin to embody that love, they naturally spread that out through their interactions and they embed that literally into the DNA, the structure of their organization. And I envision a day where people will gladly like go to these organizations because they are places of healing, because they are places where they can express their highest purpose, where people greet each other with smiles and genuine love and curiosity. I don't believe that work is here to be able to depress, suppress, or limit ourselves. I do believe that work is really a joyful experience, and that when we're on purpose and when organizations are in service of being able to reveal your purpose and celebrate your purpose, that's when everything will align like in the world. And I have such tremendous hope, and not only like a sincere um, knowing that that is possible for us.
I want to approach it from a little bit different angle for a moment, if
Sure.
I can. And that is, I want to talk about being a prospective employee when you're
Mm,
going to interview for a company. I think that it's important that not only are you going to get asked a bunch of questions and they're going to maybe you through a test or two and so forth, but it's also important for you to understand where the company's coming from, where their culture is, and what are their things that they do. As an example, there are companies now that have got quiet rooms
yeah,
where you can go and meditate and be quiet. Maybe some light music is playing, and you can just reflect upon your day and reassess and to regather your thoughts. There are companies that have got daycares within them
yeah, absolutely.
so that women who are a significant, well, they're 50% of the workforce, or they could be, and because of the fact that they are the ones who carry the babies, we got to have some place for them to go. And if they are able to have daycare within the confines of the company, that's a huge thing. Also, to have uh, a cafeteria where they can serve healthy food rather than a vending machine thing.
Absolutely.
So those are those some of the questions that you should be asking when you are going to apply for a company, to find out if you like when you when you say, "Do you have a quiet room just for meditative purposes?" And they say, "We don't do that kind of things here. You get 15 minutes in the morning, you get 15 minutes in the afternoon, and a half-hour lunch break. Other than that, you're ours." Which company? Because there still are companies like that. I would submit that that's not necessarily a company that you want to give your resources to, your time to, and to grow with that company. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 1,000%. And to the leaders who are trying to figure out how best to allocate your dollars, right now, the workforce is demanding that their whole selves be allowed opportunities to be able to grow, right? They want to be attended to not just intellectually, but that their emotional health is cared for, that their mental health is attended to, and what they're going to be spiritually attuned and where they feel like they have freedom to be able to express themselves. Okay. So, with that, any employer that is not attending to those facets, the wholeness of who a person is not going to be around in the next 50 years. And so, I say to employers and I say to leaders, look, if you want to talk about readiness and preparedness, if you really want to be able to get the best talent, you need to be able to ensure that you're providing these services so employees are attracted to and want to stay with you because they're going to vote with their feet.
They always have, they always will. And
Absolutely.
as a matter of fact, there's a survey that, a while ago that came out that compensation was like sixth or seventh on the list
Hmm.
of why people would leave a company. Then I think number one was being valued,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is so important. So, and you just said a key thing: if you are in the business of attracting the best and the brightest, you need to adhere. You need to follow. You need to take care of all of their needs, not just the basic ones, but to help them, and that can even include um, mental health services, can't it?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. Because people are awakening to the fact that they're more than just their brains, right? And they want to be able to allow all of their selves to be cared for. They want to be able to embrace this wholeness. So, leaders are awakening to this, but yeah, the workforce is too. And so if you're not attending to the whole person, and I'm talking mind, body, spirit, and soul, like attending to all those parts of them, they're going to go away. So when we're talking about being able to create a workforce for the future, it's not just a question about AI. It's about a question of like, how am I going to enhance the humanness, the quality of a person that most definitely has been like left behind? How can we create like a differentiating factors that we're actually attracting people to be able to like stay long term? Because the fact of the matter is that technology can handle, you know, many of these tasks, but the differentiating quality is what makes us human. So we need to be able to attend to all of that so that people not only stay, but they want to do business with this organization. Because people, from a consumer point of view, from a client point of view, you know, there's all. I personally don't like when I'm, you know, talking to like a dial tone, right? Like I want to be able to work with someone that understands my human needs, but to be able to feel like I'm seen as a client, as a customer, you need to be able to invest those qualities into your workforce. And that is being done by actually creating services for those employees so that they can pass that along to your customers.
And even to the point of there are companies still that, technology is a wonderful thing, but
Sure.
when you take technology and you replace the humanality of life, as an example, the famous call waiting system,
Sure.
when it is all automated, and press one for that, press two for that, press three for that, and you press three and it says, I'm sorry, that's not an accurate, and you get caught up in this wheel of getting into this system that you cannot get out of, and you can't talk to anybody, and you don't get to talk to a human. It makes it very difficult for a customer,
Yeah.
or for anybody really, even an employee. I've worked for companies where you couldn't get to the guy to call in sick because you got stuck in the automated wheel, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that inherently, people want to feel like a sense of nourishment. They want that sense of comfort that only a human can provide. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to give people the tools so that the employees see that within themselves and they naturally flow that on to the customers. So it's a cycle, right? It when we think about like, oh, are these meditation rooms actually worth it? And when we're investing in emotional intelligence, is that actually going to pay off? But what I say is that what happens if you don't, right? Because if you're just going to have humans who act like robots, humans, like their customers, aren't going to resonate with that. They're already going another way. So I really believe that the investment of the future is what makes us human, which allows us to like tap into our creativity, to tap into our to intuition. These are the qualities that um, differentiate like the workforce of the future.
Now I want you to help me here, because
Sure.
we're going to try for real quick to see if we can help somebody. Well, and I need to take a break real quick. I mean, when we come back, what I want to talk about real quickly is the third generation corporate entity. What I mean by that is you've got the founder, and then you've got his children, and then you've got their children.
Mm,
I want you to then walk us through how you go talk to that third generation who has lost contact with the investment and the desires of Mr. Founder. And they now do things in a completely different way because they don't understand. You know where I'm going with this.
I do,
Right?
yeah.
So I want you to be able to speak to those people to get them to understand that there's a reason why the founder was successful.
Hmm.
You're listening to Positive Talk, and today we have Tiffany May Yan Chan. She is with us. She is a spiritual visionary. She is a business leader. She's got quite the education, too, that we can talk about here in a minute. But we're going to take a real quick break. It's going to be just 30 seconds. So we'll be right back after this message.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Talk with Kevin McDonald. We've got a great guest here. She's a visionary, she's a leader, and her name is Tiffany. 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 I'm sorry.
May Yan Chan.
The music has me all going here.
All good.
And so, Tiffany, I wanted to ask you because I'm not going to give their name because, but it's so true. There was a founder. And he started this retail store.
Sure.
And he had a unique philosophy, and it was going to be that the customer was king, and if they were unhappy, we'll do anything to make them happy. And so he grew his business. He had 3 sons, and through them and him, they grew that business and had enormous growth through that period of time. And then the older generation retired and or passed away, and then the young generation, the young guns as they were referred to, came on board with a different philosophy, and they kind of lost the core value that had gotten them there in the first place and didn't even know it. So if you're walking in the door, how do you help these people get back to their roots?
Well, first of all, we tap into the soul of the business. So everything has a consciousness, just as you and I are living, breathing entities. We are a soul within a human body. Everything has a consciousness. So even the dolphin kingdom has a consciousness, or a business that has been around for 150 years has a consciousness, and it has something to say. Right? And businesses have personalities, and they also, over time, have acquired certain bruises, as do humans. And businesses have, required healing. So what I do when working with leaders in this particular situation would be to open the Akashic record and be able to access the consciousness of the business and hear what it has to say. Listen to where the values of that particular organization, understand where it wants to grow, how it has to align with its divine purpose. How does it serve in this current era? I think oftentimes we as humans tend to, overrun, push, or oppress like other voices, because again, we think that we may be better than certain entities, but a business is also living and breathing. So what I do is be able to give life and to be able to have that voice speak into the space. From that perspective, we also try to tap into the Akashic record of the current leader and try to figure out, okay, what does this leader, where is the purpose of this particular leader? What is this mission that this person is trying to express in the world? And then from there, be able to align those two things. Maybe that person's highest expression isn't working with this particular organization. Maybe it actually is, founding their own organization. But I do believe that when we are working in our highest alignment, when we are in purpose, and when we actually listen to the voice and the consciousness of the organization, when we put those things together and begin to harmonize that, that's when we're in highest service, not only to ourselves, but to the customers and the clients that this particular business serves. And in your case, my sense of it is that both like the person who's currently leading it, probably their purpose isn't aligned with that of the organization. And then we're also lost a sense of where this organization was intended to go. And that is evolving constantly. So we constantly need to sort of like tap in and figure out like, how does this business want to express itself? How does it want to serve in this current era? And also, sometimes it's okay to let go. I think we talked about this during our last session, Kevin. You know, we tend to think that things are meant to last forever, but over the next 10, 15 years, we're going to see a lot of systems, a lot of organizations begin to disintegrate, not because they're bad or wrong, but because their time has come. And usually we need to let go of 80% in order for new freshness, a new wave of consciousness to come through. So just because things are ending, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just that it means that there's more compost in the ground for the seeds to be able to blossom and grow.
I think you're so right. And the longer that I've been on the planet, I can now go through a list of companies and ideas and things that when I was growing up were big deals.
Sure.
And now they're gone. As an example, the phone book. There was
Yeah.
a time.
I was alive during the phone book era.
There was a time when every year you had a phone book for free delivered to your door. Now, it was a
Mhm.
huge book, and it had residential numbers and business numbers, and they would sell advertising to pay for the book. And then they delivered it to all the houses because everybody needed a phone book to find out how to call a chiropractor or a mechanic or whatever they needed. And that went away. Photomat went away. The video game places always, so all of it trans comes and it goes, and that's okay because we are continuing to evolve. But if there's a corporation guy now, in this particular case, this particular individual who I'm thinking of was gifted into the business because it was hereditary.
Yep.
And so it came down from his dad and mom to him, but he didn't have the passion that mom and dad or grandpa did, because the grandpa, the founder, mom and his dad, who built the company up. But so it's almost like a golden handcuffs. Have you ever heard that expression?
Oh, yeah, or the golden bird cage.
That's even a better one. The
Yep.
golden bird cage, where you cannot get out of it because the compensation is such,
Mm,
and the reputation is such. I'm the CEO of X,
yeah.
rather than I'm um I'm a physical therapist or something like it's. They could be following their heart, and it could be being a physical therapist, but they've got this other thing over here that they have to do. How do you get them? And then I want to ask you about the Akashic records, because there are people who may not know exactly what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so your question about, um, how do you get out of that situation? I mean, we inherit so many things. In this case, we're talking about a business, right? But we also inherit ideas, frameworks, things of how things should be in the world. And I think that everyone comes to a certain point, some may call it a midlife crisis, where we need to assess, where we're like brought to our knees and we're being invited to assess what is actually mine, what is actually something that I've inherited, and what do I want to carry forward. right? And sometimes it may be a job that it's like, oh, my parents always thought, or there was an expectation that, blah, 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 whether it be a doctor or I'd always lead this organization or whatever. And then people have to assess, like, is that something that I really want to carry forward in the next half of my life? And if so, great. But if not, there is a desire, like there is like a calling forth to be able to shed what is no longer yours, because those coats, while they may be keeping you warm in the interim, can actually weigh you down. Right. And it's actually covering over your true purpose. It's actually covering over your core identity. And people think, oh, I feel like there has something that has yet to be expressed. I think that there's something that I have more to do. It's because we're not in alignment with that true purpose. And one of the things that I do is actually work with people to figure out, A, what is that pure expression that only you uniquely can provide in the world? And how do we amplify that so that you get out of your own way? What are the ways in which you've covered that over? And let's actually take those off so that you feel free and also safe to be able to express yourself, because we need your true expression in the world. Because again, collectively, we're not going to get from here to there without your contribution that is serving with alignment with your true purpose. It's impossible.
It's great that you bring this up,
Mm,
because there are lots and lots of people, and it's in my opening because it happened to me.
yeah.
It was one of those, why am I really here? This can't be all there is. There has to be more.
Yeah.
And then I went in search of it. But how many people in the olden days, when my dad was a Korean, in those days, you worked for a company, you bought into what the company said, you worked for them for 30 years or 35 years, and you retired. And then in those days, you died a little bit younger, but you really lost your identity if you'd been working at some place for 30 years or 35 years. Because my dad was always Mr. McDonald because he was in a position of power. But then when he ended his position of power, when they retired him, which they did a little early, but when they retired him, he now was just Jack. And
Hmm.
Jack didn't know how to handle Jack.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it became that is, in my mind, that is a horrible end of your life here, is to not know who you are anymore and not be fulfilled with every day you get your butt out of bed.
Yeah, yeah. And you see it in so many different ways, right? Like folks who have been in the military for a really long time, they have their hair cut a certain way, they wear a certain watch, they tie their shoes a certain way. They are so regimented because that's how they've organized their life. And so that when they retire from the military, there's a tremendous fear, right? Because they don't know how to exist outside of that. I had my own experience of that. After my accident, the three things that I most identified with, that I had based my identity on: my relationship with my boyfriend, my work job title, and then also my cerebral intellect, right? And those three things, as a result of the accident, just vanished, right, in an instant. And so I was lost. I didn't know who I was. And I think that it's in those periods where we like lose everything, that all the pieces are left on the ground, but we're able to rebuild again, reconstitute, not based on the expectations of society, not based on the expectations of our family, and really be able to shed those inherited beliefs and build from scratch. And like, let's be honest, Kevin, it's much harder and it's super scary. I'm going to be honest. And it's tremendously freeing, because the things that we thought were the core of who we are, they actually aren't that fulfilling. Like I thought that this particular title and affiliation to an organization would be the key. But in fact, they were the golden handcuffs. They were the golden bird cage. And so, what is it like to allow ourselves to embrace our wings, to be able to fly out into the open air? Yes, there is a tremendous amount of um, scariness because we don't necessarily know which direction to go. But when we allow ourselves to like spread into the fullness of who we are, metaphorically spread our wings, we're able to explore dimensions that we never thought were possible. And that's my invitation to anyone that is listening to this particular show. It's like, you know, who do you want to be and how do you want to contribute and serve, so that others may be able to find their freedom as well? Because again, when we're serving at our highest expression and when we do that collectively, that's when systems change.
By the way, we are talking with you. You are so special, by the way.
Oh,
I just gotta tell you.
thank you.
Tiffany May Yan Chan, and she's a business and spiritual leader and coach. We're going to talk about her accident when we come back, and we're going to talk about the Akashic records and so much more. So I hope you'll stay with us. We're going to take a quick station break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
A lifetime of savings can disappear overnight. Millions of dollars are stolen every day from unsuspecting older adults by family members, caregivers, and trusted professionals. If you suspect financial exploitation, call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or go online to the National Adult Protective Services Association to be connected with help in your area.
Hey, I gotta tell you, this is so much fun. I'm having a great time. I hope that you'll stay around for the entire show because we're having a really good time, and this is really a great discussion. We're talking with Tiffany May Yan Chan, and if you go to her website, which is tiffanyMchan.com, you can find out all about her, what work she does, how she can be of service to you. And I think a lot of us, as we hit a certain age, they used to call it the midlife crisis. And I think a lot of it has to do with you realize that your time on the planet so far is maybe longer than you got left. And you say, okay, now it's I've been here 40 years. My father died at 70 or 65. I had a friend that had swore to me that since his dad died at 59, that he was going to be gone at 64. Well, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. He was gone at 64. But the concept of your time left and how little you have left, and then you realize that you're not done and you want to do more. That's pretty universal, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. I think all of us reach that point where we're just like, hey, listen, like, what is this all for? And if there's anything left in the tank, like, I want to be able to express that selves because we've got this one shot. So why not make it worth it? Right. At least that's the question that I had.
Yeah. Well, when some people will, rather than make fundamental changes in their life, they'll get the I always got the biggest kick out of the short, little overweight, bald guy in a Corvette, thinking that he's riding around and he's all tough and stuff because he's got a Corvette because that was his dream and that's how he's going to keep himself younger. Or the other guy who goes and marries somebody that divorces the woman that he's been with for 25 years and goes and marries somebody who's 20 years younger because he wants to feel renovated and alive. It ends up not working because they're not happy anyway, because they're not getting to the core problem.
Yeah, but Kevin, we joke at those things, but both like the Corvette and the sexy younger woman, what are those things emblematic of, right? They're emblematic of like vitality. They're emblematic of like a desire for richness, and may grasp at those things because that's the closest thing that we think that will be the healing balm for the pain. But it's actually like, I want something that's more substantive, and I don't necessarily know what that is. I don't have language for it. Perhaps they don't necessarily have an experience of that before, but there's a reaching and a genuine like yearning for something more. And I think that everyone wants that. And a lot of folks, you know, predominantly like in terms of social media, I'm on LinkedIn. And so when I write about these things on LinkedIn, people are sort of giving me the side eye because I've been told that I write about things that people often think about, but they don't necessarily have the courage to talk about, particularly at these platforms. And they feel like they don't have spaciousness to be able to ruminate about these things, even though everyone knows that they're going to die, but no one truly like believes it. And so, what has been so quote unquote radical about how I'm showing up is that I'm bridging these two worlds and I'm saying, listen, you may think of LinkedIn as like a business platform, but actually, in what ways can we actually shift it and say, this is actually an invitation for you to be whole, not only at work, but actually in like these platforms where you think it's just professional, because this bifurcation of I'm going to keep my personal self at home or on the weekends has totally dissipated. I think if anything, COVID has taught us that we can't like segment our lives anymore. You know, literally, we brought Zoom into our kitchens. We brought our workforce into our bedrooms. And the fact of the matter is that it was never that way. We tried to pretend like our personal selves were completely private, but you can't help if you've had a fight with your wife at home and you go to work, you bring that energy, you bring that emotion into the workplace. And so what I'm saying is, let's actually be honest about what's going on here and attend to our full selves, because in doing so, we're able to not only put all our cards on the table, but we're also able to like also access the gifts that you may have pretended like didn't exist. So those gifts that you're like, oh, I play the guitar at home, are actually gifts of creativity and innovation. And so you think that that's only something that you do on the side and on the weekends. But if you're able to like allow yourselves to access those gifts of creativity in the workplace, look at all the new things that open up as a result. And so I think that, you know, the workplace is evolving where we're embracing all of these like parts of ourselves. And so my invitation to leaders is to, as you allow yourself to show up more fully at work, you give your workforce permission to do the same.
I love that. And by the way, one of the ways that you help them access who they really are and why they're really here is the Akashic Records. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get away without explaining, because somebody's going, huh? What's that? I have no idea what you're talking about. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands when you are doing that. It is, by the way, it is, well, you explain it.
Yeah, so the Akashic Records goes by many names. It has been referenced in every spiritual tradition. So, in the Christian tradition, in the Bible, it's been referenced as the Book of Life. It's been known as the Eye of God. For those who prefer a science perspective, it's also known as the quantum field. And the Akashic Records, by definition, is every thought, action, deed, emotion, and every potentiality that exists across all times, places, dimensions, and all levels of consciousness. So, what I like to say is that when you open your Akashic record, and everything has an Akashic record, it's like having coffee with your soul. Right. So it's a reflection of your divine blueprint, what you've come here to do, your purpose here on earth, the major lessons that you're here to learn, the partnerships that you're forming as a result, so that you can both collaborate, grow, and learn from one another. Everything has an Akashic record. You as an individual has an Akashic record, as referenced before. Businesses have an Akashic record. The natural world has an Akashic record. And we're able to not only sense into the consciousness of people, places, and things, we're actually able to heal as well. Because the Akashic records are not limited by time or space, you are able to understand the evolution of a soul. So not only your current iteration in this place and time, but also things that happen when you were in utero, and also things that happened in past lives. And if anything has happened in those particular places, we can attend to that, we can heal that, and it can populate in your current self so that you can show up free, healed, and allow yourself to be able to express the highest part of who you are so that you can be in service to the world.
You know, that's beautifully said, by the way, and
Hmm.
that is so true. But there are some of us that are out there that are like, are you meaning to tell me that what I'm doing today in my life is being recorded and that I get to have that played back on the other side after I passed? And then do I have to answer for those things at that time? Is it part of my experience? Am I going to be really, I think if people recognized that by being a less than good person here, and that they get to deal with that later. I think an important distinction to make. Then don't you? I mean, do we, when we go over there and we get to look at our records and they go through them and we get to look at everything we did, and I mean everything,
Mhm.
that we then get to understand why that wasn't such a good way to be. Is that what happens over there?
Um, well, first of all, I don't know what happens over there.
You're not
um,
there yet.
I'm
Well, when you get there, would you come back and we'll do it? No, I'm kidding.
Sure. Well, I say that with absolute humility because I think that if anyone dares to claim exactly and precisely how everything works, frankly, I think they're lying. I think that the universe and God, spirit, source is vast and mysterious. And although I am part of that oneness, I don't claim to know everything that ever has or will exist. Um, and I say that with sincerity and humility because I recognize that I am a channel for divine, but I'm also human. That being said, the energy of the Akashic Records and the energy of God's Spirit Source is a frequency of love. And I think that there are ways in which we've um, tended to think that God is this bearded white man who will cast judgment on us because we're bad, wrong people, and that we should live in fear of that particular judgment day. And I want to like really be able to help people dissolve that because from my experience, the frequency of the Akashic records is objective, neutral, and always loving, meaning that they're never here to cast judgment or to incite any shame or fear, but they're always here to encourage, to be able to help you grow and evolve, and really remind you of who inherently you are, which is part of love, part of source. And a lot of people, when I open the Akashic records for them, even before uttering a word, they have a very visceral physical reaction, meaning a lot of people immediately cry because when they're exposed to that unconditional love, they can't help but be reminded of the truth of who they are. Again, not a word has been uttered, and yet their body and their soul automatically responds to the frequency because through that they feel like they're known, seen, and loved. They're seen from their true essence. All that exterior stuff, those coats that we were referring to, the inherited beliefs, the quote unquote bad things that we did in life, that doesn't necessarily matter. We're actually seen from our soul's perspective. And when we allow ourselves to remember the truth of who we are, which is part of source, like really an expression of love, you can't help but surrender to that space. And that's what I'm here to remind people of. It's not necessarily cognition. People think that, oh, like I want to get to know God. I want to read a book. I want to listen to a podcast. Those things are all well and good, but your mind really isn't going to, it's actually going to get more in the way. It's less cognition. It's more recognition. Like your body remembers, your soul remembers. I'm just reminding you the truth of who you know who you already are.
Did you know? Do you know who Neil Donald Walsh is?
Yes.
I get to interview him in March.
Oh, super cool.
Again, and he says exactly the same thing, as does Gary Zukov, as does every major person that I've ever talked to. And unless you're really good, you haven't talked to everybody that I've talked to. And we all say the same thing. It all comes down basically to the same thing, that we are working to remember who we are and to recognize our greatness and to know our greatness so that we can live the best adventure life that we can. And when we when I was talking about the Akashic records, it's not that they do it in judgment. The only person who's in judgment of us is us.
Yeah.
If we don't accomplish everything that we set out to do in this life, which is why what you do is so important, to help unlock that door for people so that they can walk through it and lead the life that they came here to lead. I can't think of a higher calling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, I channel on behalf of the source, but truth of the matter is that people already know when I say the words, it's almost like they're reminded, and they already know because they've been tapping into source. They know through their intuition. It's just an affirmation, an acknowledgement. And what I really love to tell people, because I had this whole idea of like, before I got into all this, I thought that people who channeled were like charlatans, because I just didn't want to be taken for a fool. I just didn't want to like place all of my eggs in that particular basket. But I really want to tell people this is really a journey of empowerment, right? And so what I like to tell people is that I take them from do it for you, do it with you, do it yourself. Meaning, I do channel for you, but my hope and wish is that I work with people so that they can learn and recognize to do it themselves, so that ultimately they don't need me, right? I go back to what we said at the beginning, is that we're walking, talking, breathing antennas, naturally hardwired to connect to divine. I'm just reminding you of that frequency so that you can do it yourself, so that you can be able to trust your connection to source. And I'm going to say something controversial here, is that, ayahuasca journeys or mushrooms, they're very in vogue right now. And there are a lot of CEOs who are going on these particular trips. It's helpful. I think that there's a lot to be said about plant medicine. So I'm not here to disrespect, because I do believe that they provide a gateway for expanded consciousness. But my challenge is that there's almost like a false sense that we need these things in order to be able to access divine, that we are dependent on it, that I need to go on an ayahuasca journey to have an encounter with source. And that's just not true. You are encountering source day in, day out, 24/7. And God Spirit Source is here to be able to provide for you and wants to connect with you. And there are people like me to help enrich and help bolster so that you can build the skill set to be able to do it. Because I do believe being able to recognize the cues is a skill set which can be learned, but you're already doing this. And so it's kind of like working with a trainer at a gym. We do the reps together once a week, but the other many hours outside of the session where we work out, you're actually doing it on your own. So I want people to know that you don't need a special medicine, or you don't need a guide like me. Ultimately, this is about building intimacy with you and source, and you're there already.
Well, and I had somebody tell me, you really should go do this. What is it? Ashwanda and ayahuasca. And she said, yeah, I did that. And I threw up for about 10 hours. And then after that, I had this deep experience. And I said, well, of course you did after throwing up for 10 hours. Anybody could have that. I agree with you. I think that the way the divine works is that if you're quiet and if you listen, you can contact and be in contact with source anytime that you choose to. It's just a matter of you knowing that that's what you're doing. I think.
Yeah. And if I could offer, because it's one thing for me, I've been doing this for years, so it's sort of like just connect with source. But I also work with people who like tactical advice. So for those who like tactical advice, here are 2 pointers that might be helpful. Okay. The first is, really take time to center yourself. What I do is I'm a big advocate of energetic hygiene, much in the same way that you would go and brush your teeth every day. I would ground as well as connect into the center of the universe so that you feel calm and centered, because there's so much noise going on. You ain't going to be able to hear the universe if you're not grounded and centered. So that's the first thing. Get yourself grounded and centered and practice daily energetic hygiene. The second is ask to connect into the highest vibration possible, to the finest, most refined frequencies. Go directly to source. Okay? Yes, there are guides and angels here to support you, and go to source. It's always available to you. Okay, so connect into the highest vibration possible. The third is sometimes we get in our heads, right? Sometimes we ask about things that just are so emotionally charged, and it's hard to find that objective neutrality that I referred to before. If you have a question that you need an answer to, ask in third person. Okay, and so by that I mean, instead of saying, should Tiffany should I buy this car? Okay. Should I stop dating this person? Should I, XYZ? Instead of asking that, ask in third person and say, what is in Tiffany Mayan Chan's highest good? Is in Tiffany's highest good to buy that car? It actually takes us out of the emotional charge. It actually provides that objective neutrality. And through that, we're able to channel more clearly. So I hope those three things might be helpful for folks, because when we're first starting out, it can kind of feel a little rocky. So again, just to recap, ground and center daily. Second, really be able to allow yourself to have objective neutrality by asking in third person, and get out of your head, right? Allow yourselves to feel the fullness, because you're already there. You're already connected to source.
We've got just about a minute and a half left.
Absolutely.
And I want to make sure that, Tiffany, we get your information out, because if you have trouble understanding or doing those 3 things that you just mentioned, they can always call you and you can work them through it, and you can help them get through it. And that's okay. Everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs somebody who's outside of themselves to look at the things that we inherently miss. So if somebody wants to contact you, how do they do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. My website is the best place to reach me. It's www.tiffanymchan.com. There's a very simple form there, and I'll be happy to reach out and contact you. Again, this is a journey of empowerment. So not only do I help channel on behalf of God, Spirit, Source through the Akashic Records, but I also teach people how to do this so that they can do it on their own.
And the next time I want to talk to you about muscle testing and all kinds of stuff like that, because I think that's also, will you come back? Will you see me again?
Absolutely. Such a pleasure, Kevin.
Thank you so much. And you've been listening to Positive Talk with me, Kevin McDonald, and we got to go, but we'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We are a production of kmmedia.pro. a full-service media company. Whether it is audio, video, shorts, or longer pieces, we're able to take each project from beginning to final product within your time frame and on budget. Visit kmmedia.pro for more details about us and to get started on your project. We also would like to thank the Brushwood Media Network for all their support. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com to find out more about them and the quality shows featured on the network. Until then, we'll see you next time. My name again is Kevin McDonald.